A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the show Sadai Haq. I hope you guys are doing well today. Today's date is July 14, 2019. Wish you guys nothing but the best of health, wellness, and prosperity. May Allah make things easy for all of us all around. And just so we can continue in today's show, again, this is going to be the second part of our topic in discussion on domestic violence. I know we had discussed this matter 2-3 weeks ago, and unfortunately there were certain holidays that came in, and personally I was out of town. So this week itself, again, I have Lamajan, who is here to discuss and go forward in doing the second half of the topic that we had discussed on domestic violence. So before we go on, I want to give you my salam, and please start off, if you have anything to say to our viewers, so we can get started and we can discuss the matter of what we want, where we left off last time.
Willie John, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come back onto your show today to finish discussing, such an important topic that needs to be addressed, especially since we're talking about the incidences that had occurred a few weeks ago with a fellow Afghan member in our community who was murdered. So I want to thank you for allowing me to come back here. I want to pass my hellos to our viewers who are watching us today. I'm hoping that you guys enjoy today's topic and call us if you have any questions.
And again, the same thing I wanted to discuss a lot of our friends and family members is that please give us a call if you have any questions regarding or pertaining domestic violence. It's a great topic. It's a topic that's very important, and prominently we want to go ahead and discuss the importance of what are the signs, symptoms, as we had discussed earlier. Maybe we can touch up on the signs and symptoms of domestic violence, with what is also known as intimate partner violence, and go over those, and then we'll get into, I believe, what is the next step after that, kind of when we do the refresher of that.
So definitely the next steps that we want to discuss today are going to be physical signs that people outside of the relationship can see, whether that is, blue eyes, strangulation marks on necks, just the individual's behavior. So we're going to look at how you as a third person can notice if somebody is being abused, and kind of focus on helping recognize those symptoms, those signs, and then knowing how to approach that individual to assist them in creating a safety plan or supporting them in any way they need support. We'll also be discussing today how you can prepare yourself to leave a situation if it is life-provoking, if it is dangerous, and you think that this individual who I'm living with who's abusive towards me is planning to hurt me, to kill me, or hurt my children. So we'll be discussing the steps of that as well.
Awesome, perfect, great. دوستان عزیزا، خدا کنه که خوب باشین، آرام باشین. بازم پروگرام امروز که است درباره خشونت است در بین فامیلا، که ما خود ما میبینیم که چطور در بین زن و شوهر روزانه مشکلات است، جنگ میشه، زدن است، لط کوب است. دیگه اینمی پروگرام پس چیز میکنیم، دوباره پیش میبریم. دو هفته پیش که شروع کرده بودیم خلاص نشده بود. دیگه امروز میریم دیگه هم تشریحش هم که آن چیز میکنیم، پیش میبریم. دوستان عزیزان، لخیر هغه کو دا پروگرام د خشونت د ښځو میړو د منځ کې د جنګ او شیونه کې تیریږي. موږ دوه هفتې مخکې خبرې کړې وو که څه مشکلاتونه راځي د ښځو میړو او د فامیلي د منځ کې، او څه کولی سي تاسو که کومک پسې څنګه کولی سي کومک پسې هغسې مخکې لاړ سي او ژوند نور مخکې ویسي. بیا هم که د خاطرې د خراب خاطرې که د تاسو خپل ژوند کې اوس هم کې دي، څنګه کولی سي که یو ښه ژوند مخکې ویسي ځان لپاره او خپل ماشومان لپاره او فامیلي لپاره. So let's get started. So I know last time what had happened was we left off discussing the signs and symptoms, and going over financial abuse,
The different types of abuse.
different
Yeah.
types of abuse. So I mean, I'll let this is your floor. Maybe I'll let you to it, and then that way we can have a discussion of our own
Sure.
clinically, with clients that come to us and people that come to us, and we want to be able to discuss these matters and kind of share my own personal story. Maybe you
Sure.
can do the same, and then as we go further, I'll probably translate to our viewers in Dari and Pashto as we
Okay.
go further.
Wonderful. So, as you mentioned earlier, our previous show focused on, what falls under the umbrella of domestic violence. Usually, when we think of domestic violence, we only think of acts such as physical aggression towards your partner. But our last show actually focused on that fact that physical violence is not the only type of domestic violence, that there's also other types of abuse. We discussed how there's emotional abuse, and that consists of, being verbally aggressive, calling people bad names, telling them they're stupid, they're not worthy of love, they're not worthy of living under the roof, being loved, taken care of, such things. We talked about isolation, so sometimes we see perpetrators reducing the amount of contact their partner has with their families, with their friends. They want to isolate that individual. They want to take over control and gain power over the individual. We talked about also financial abuse. So
Yeah.
not allowing, the victim to have any access to money and access to job, just controlling everything that has to do with any form of income, and not even allowing the person to go grocery shopping, always being suspicious, and trying to do those things for them because they don't want to give them money.
And this is something that I've, in my own clinical case studies that I've seen with families who come in. And not too long ago, I had an Afghan, sister, who's in her late 30s, and she has one daughter. And being from Kabul, she said she got married 11 years ago. She was brought here, and now the husband is just, kind of holding her, restricting her from going anywhere. As you had mentioned and discussed the
Yeah.
signs and symptoms, one of the challenges that I've saw with this certain case and client was that, the husband was being controlling, where she had no access to money. He would give her $100 only just to spend, and that's it. Anything else, where if she was to need anything, let's say if the shampoo is out of the house, if they ran out of it, if they didn't have, utensils, grocery that she needed, she had to tell her daughter in order her daughter would tell the father.
So she was like the communicator between the
Yeah,
parents.
so the child was even the communicator. But I also wanted to discuss with you, let's have a little discussion about how big of an impact that makes for the child. Because the child comes to me, and it was actually because the wife was willing to put up with the husband and stay there. What really brought her to seek help was really the daughter. The daughter, actually, who's 11, told her mother that, I'm not happy for you, I'm not happy for us, can do something, and even separate. That's and then the mother came up.
Yeah. And so when I hear you say that, I'm actually hearing how unhappy this child is,
Yeah.
and how distraught this child is, because I think it's really difficult for a child to have even this thought of, I want my mom and dad to separate. That's one of the most painful things that children go through,
Yeah.
is when their families separate, because it's your first understanding, it's your first experience of love, and when that image breaks down for you, it's very heartbreaking, and it's really bothersome. So just to hear that this child came forward and said, Mom, you're just so unhappy, or Dad is so unhappy, and you guys are not talking, it shows how much, pain and the child was going through. But it also tells me how frustrated this child was to be this middle person,
Yeah.
like almost like a delegator between the two individuals, right? To be able to go to Dad and say, oh, Mom wants this, Dad says this, just going back and forth, and just feeling like, what is my role? Am I your child, or am I being put in a different role now?
And that's what has happened, which is sad. And not just that, but if you really look at it, for parents that don't understand this, is that you're also taking away the child's childhood. That's the main thing. So the child will never learn that they have, them having a childhood. And one of the things that you'll probably going on later in life, you will notice, is that your kid will not have an easy time communicating with people their own age, because then they'll be focused in sitting with elders and just kind of being that lonely person versus versus going out and hanging out with people, meeting people their age, and doing other fun activities. And that's where then parents get frustrated, and then they ask, or they'll say, is that my son or my daughter is usually at home and
It's
they
for-
stay home.
Yeah, that, or, two things can happen. That can either happen, or, at the child level, the child might continue doing these things and being the delegator between the parents, because that's like almost their role of survival. Sometimes young children have this belief of, I have to do this because if I do this, then there's going to be peace within the home. I can control the arguments. I can keep my family together if I take on this role. But then as they get older and they get intuition, which is basically like knowledge that younger children don't have about, things that occur around them, like understanding them. As they get older, that role becomes this burden on them.
Yeah.
And many of these kids who grew up start feeling very burdened by it, and they start feeling very frustrated, where they will actually say, you know what, I am done. I don't want to do this anymore. You guys can separate if you want to separate. You guys can remain together if you want to remain together. But I'm leaving, and I'm going to go and start living my life, the life I didn't have as a child.
Absolutely.
So we see a lot of those cases as well, where the parents are so shocked of, like, we've given them such a good childhood, and now my child doesn't want to come over as often, or my child wants to like hang out with people, and they're so shocked by it. They don't understand why is there such a change in his behavior or her behavior.
And it is true, yeah. And what ends up happening is that, as you had mentioned earlier, is that as your child gets older, they're not going to visit you a lot, and that's the reason for it, is because there was something that took place when they were younger. They don't want to come and see, or what ends up happening is when they come, they go back into
There's
having
like an
those memories,
association of the
it. It is. It's a big association of the past that was unpleasant. It was unhappy. So anytime they try to come and they do their best to come, psychologically they can't. They always, their mind goes back to the years before and what they were going through. For instance, if you had your child doing tasks every single day in the house and kind of kept them away from with friends or going out, that's going to be very challenging, because if you had your child raised in a way where they're at home, locked, you can't go anywhere, you can't hang out with your friends, you're restricted to hanging out with others. As they get older, they're going to run away from you. So the first thing that they get, at the moment they're able to do that, they'll run away.
Yeah, and I think there's this like piece that remains with a child that says, well, they don't understand me. And I know when I go back and see my parents, or have spent time with my parents, like, I'm going to have to hear, how I'm not doing these things anymore, or how I should be doing certain things. So for them, it feels like they never get accepted for who they are, and they're constantly being asked to be someone they're not. That's like a lot of challenges that we see in the community. We see parents coming in and saying, I don't know what to do with my child. Like, my child keeps telling me that I don't understand them. And, so I think we have to be very aware of the kind of roles we put our children in, because we don't want to take away like a good relationship with them, but also their opportunity to have a childhood.
And all of this is absolutely true. And one of the other things that I want to kind of share with you, and correct me if I'm wrong or not, but I think a lot of the challenges is also with the parents itself, of these children, is that parents that do these kind of, or have these kind of expectations towards their kid, is because they were also raised the same way. So for that's what the parents know. So it's not really their fault as well, but they were raised that a certain way. What would you say to that?
I would say that's true for some, but then I've also seen families where, let's say there's a husband and a wife, and they have a lot of problems in their relationship, and there's a lot of miscommunication, and let's just say that we'll use the wife as an example in this case. We'll say that the wife feels so misunderstood. Like, she's trying to talk to her husband, they're always fighting, they're always having arguments about everything, and she just feels like, I can't even talk to you. Like, what is the point of me talking to you? You're not understanding anything I'm saying. I shouldn't even talk to you. What we see in these situations, we see that the wife, for example, in this case, needs support in the relationship, and because she's not able to get it from her spouse, she turns to the children. And so they start complaining to the children. Oh, your dad does this. Your dad is never home. Your dad doesn't listen. Da da da. Like kind of bad mouthing dad, right?
Yeah.
And so what we see happening is in these kind of relationships, the child and the mother, they become a team.
Okay.
And then they turn against the father. Or in other families, we see the child and the father become a team and turn against the mother,
yeah,
because the adults in the relationship are so frustrated with one another that they try to find somebody else in the family to create that relationship with. So what we call that is building an alliance with someone else, or coalition. We're triangulating a third person because we can't speak to the person we have a problem with. We have to speak to a third person to let off the steam. But it never solves the problem.
Okay. So now the problem here, or the situation here comes, is that, well, if that's the case, then what happens to that marriage? If you're continuously working with your child. So for instance, with this case, when I have the mother and the daughter who came, the mother did feel supported because of her 11-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So would you say, is that a good thing? Or is that a bad thing, in that sense?
I mean, you could say that it's a good thing for the mother, but it could be a bad thing for the daughter.
Of course.
Because you're putting in a 11-year-old daughter in a place of an adult, in a role of adult. In a role where she has to bring her mom and say, like, this is wrong and this is right and you shouldn't be treated this way. And so it makes you wonder, is that child having a childhood? Should she be worrying about these things? Should she be even having these conversations? Should she even be aware of these problems at that age?
And so the other question would be, and it's true, it's not the role of a child, but as we've known earlier, is that in these roles, when there's domestic violence or intimate partner violence, that takes place, is that sometimes either the fathers or the mothers, they lose sense of empowerment.
Yeah.
They lose themselves. So for that, even the most slightest things, like let's say this 11-year-old child who's fed up with it, right? I think for that person, now they're trying to empower their mother or their father to leave, and that's like a key for them, or awakening call for them, like, wow, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So it's also look at it a positive way,
yeah,
in that sense.
And I think the other thing that we also need to discuss is the fact that when we grow up in these kind of relationships, when our two key figures are living lives that are abusive, we actually tend to grow up and search for similar things in our own partners. So there's a lot of research indicating that, as adults, we grow up and we marry individuals who are similar to, our own parents. So for a guy, usually he seeks his own mom and other women. And for women, it's usually they're seeking their father and other men.
Yes.
Because it's either that idea of familiarity, or it's that idea of, I didn't have a father, and so I need to search for that in a partner, for those qualities to be there.
Definitely. And then the other thing, what I've heard actually from young adults who I know, even a couple friends who I grew up with, females and guys, and what I've come to realize is that for certain females, or for certain guys, as you said, so they want somebody who can take care of them, where things are already done for them, and nobody actually questions their authority. So that's what happens. So when
as a child.
Okay. So even as they get older, when you see a lot of partners, when the female starts questioning the husband, these are general questions that questionings that would take place. Hey, what are you doing? What, like, let's say the female wants to do something and she shares her opinion. The husband doesn't like that. So for that, in order to stop those arguments, it turns into violence. His aggression turns into violence, and that was how he learned from his father, seeing his father abusing the mother.
Yeah.
So for the girls, it's the opposite. They'll also look at it, in let's say, for instance, they look into those kind of features or characteristics of how their father was, and they want somebody like that. It's kind of weird, and it's kind of like psychologically kind of disturbing when I hear it. But they don't know that, but it's not healthy, because for them, they think they want somebody who is as strong, but not realizing that once they are in that situation, they're okay with it because they've been so immune to that situation.
And I love that you're saying that. It becomes a normal.
It becomes very normal.
For them, it's like, okay, well, my father did it, so other men do it. And in reality, a lot of women and men who enter these relationships, they're not trying to seek. They're not saying, oh, I'm going to go and marry a woman who's going to abuse me, or I'm going to marry a man who's going to beat me the way my father beat my mom. they're not going into the relationship with that idea, but what we have seen from studies and research that women, men who come from abusive relationships, they end up in relationships that are abusive.
Yeah.
So there is something that attracts them, whether it's a personality trait,
Yeah.
a characteristic trait.
Definitely.
They're not seeing the abuse there when they're entering the relationship, but somehow that relationship does end up being abusive towards.
It's and the reason why we say that is that they feel safe.
Yeah.
So even when they see somebody who has a specific characteristics or a behavior or some form of like cultural upbringing or norm, it's kind of a familiarity. Like usually when I talk to people, it's like, okay, if you meet somebody that you don't even know of, what are certain things that make two people click is commonalities. So that's what happens, and then later on, once they get married or they get together, they come to realize that it's a destruction. But not even knowing that there's a destruction, they're willing to be in that same relationship with this person, either be a guy or a girl, because they're comfortable and for them it's normalized, as we had said it earlier. So again, I know we're talking a lot. We're discussing more. Should we continue to keep going, or how do you want to break this up?
It's your show. I'm the guest.
I'm trying to ask you so we can go slowly and easier too, because I know we have friends and families who are watching us, and they're also wanting to hear it in Pashto and in Dari.
Okay.
So should we go ahead and talk about certain symptoms?
Sure.
So before and we can go and talk about it slowly, and then I will go ahead and translate it, and you can help translate as well.
Sure.
And then we'll go forward from there.
Sure.
Awesome.
So let's go ahead and go into the portion of physical signs that you can see when somebody is being abused.
Okay.
We'll start off there. So some of the signs that you can see if somebody's being physically abused and they're in a domestic violent relationship consist of, one that we see is, or actually here is, when their voice changes. So somebody who's in a domestic violently relationship, who's being physically abused, those people tend to be strangulated by their spouses. So basically what that means is their spouse puts their hands on their throat and squeezes.
Okay.
And so when that happens, it affects, the veins and the lungs and the different areas in our throat. And so what we'll see in victims is they have like a raspy voice. Like you can barely hear their voice come out. It's really hard for them to talk. They tend to cough a lot. It almost sounds like they're sick and they're losing their voice. So that's one of the signs that you can look for when you're speaking to someone and you're noticing that their voice has been like that for a few weeks. Like, they don't seem like they have a cold. They don't seem like that they're sick. But, it's like, what is going on there?
Okay. And now to go further, I know you do speak Pashto.
Yeah.
So do you want to help translate that in Pashto, and then I'll do the
Sure.
side of it.
خلکو موږ نن د domestic violence په باره کې خبرې کوو او یو شی چې کله موږ یو کس ګورو چې کور کې خشونت یو شی چې موږ ګورو دا ده چې اواز بدلیږي. اواز داسې ده چې فکر وکړي چې مریض یې، اواز یې نه راوځي، ډېر ورته مشکل ده چې خبرې وکړي.
غواړم دې باندې لږ ذره خپل هم خبرې وکړم د چا که څوک کور کې وهل خوري
کس چې وهل خوري
صحیح دغو اواز کوم تبدیلي په اواز کې راځي که ډېر خاموش وي یا ارامېږي خبرې ډېر نه کوي.
ډېر مشکل ده چې خبرې وکړي، چې کله خبرې کوي داسې فکر کوي چې بیخي داسې په نرمي باندې خبرې کوي چې هېڅ اواز نه راوځي، درد لري.
د دې دلیل به څه ډار به وي؟
نه ډار نه ده. د دې دلیل دا ده چې یو انسان د هغه په ستوني باندې خپل لاسونه ایښي دي او پښتو کې نه وایم چې ورته څه وایي، خو they squeezed it، ور باندې فشار یې راوړی چې ورته هوا رانه شي.
صحیح ده.
بل شی دا ده چې ورته ډېر مشکله ده چې خپل توکان یې تېر کړي، ورته درد پیدا کیږي عملته کنه د دې په خاطر چالته چې سکویز شوی چې
موږ ته غړه وایو که څوک په لاسونه اخلي او هغه کوي په همدغه غواړي کې هغه کې دغه سرقمي وایم د مرګ علامه باندې
خو زور اړوي کنه په ستوني باندې زور اړوي چې نه وایي چې اوا ورته راشي so د دې په خاطر ورته ډیر مشکل چې خپل توکانې تیر کړي د دې په خاطر چې درد لري کنه ډیر مشکل اما چې کله کله چې ستوني دردي لرو او مریض است او موږ ته مشکل وي چې توکانې تیر کړي دسه ده کنه خو ښکاری ته ګوري چې کس د په زور باندې خپل توکانې تیرای بل خبره ده چې هغه به همیشه توهیږي همیشه به داسې چې تاسو سره خبرې کوي بقاعده دې په خاطر چې ورته مشکل چې خبرې وکړي دا ځایونه یې خوب شوي دي
دیگه دوستا عزیزا کوشش میکنم که ترجمهش صحیح کنم اگر نشد بازم معذرت میخوایم ما کوشش خود زیاد میکنیم این برنامه هم که شروع شده بود با خودم هم بسیار معذرت خواستم گفتم که اگر در پشتو یا در دری کدام سختی یا مشکلات زبان ما آمد معذرت بسیار زیاد میخواهیم که خود ما لمبه جان کس از عمر 11 در خود خارج آمدیم زیادتر زندگی ما هم در اینجا تیر شده که ما خودم هم اگر بگوییم انگلیسی که است زبان قوی تر ماست دیگه بعد خاطر از اونمون کوشش میکنیم دیگه بازم اگر کدام سوال یا کدام چیزی که میخواین که ما شریک کنین درباره یا خاطرات زندگی خود یا زندگی دیگه کس میتونین تلفن کنین در پرده تلویزیون صدای حق دیگه حال خود لمبا جانم که گفت خانمام که هستن جاتر و خانمام شوهرها که میباشه یا بچه ها دخترها که میره بیرون میره که دیگه خود دیدنی میکنه بویفرند و گرلفرند که میباشن زیادتر در خانم‌ها که اگر ببینی یک مشکل آواز بهشان پیدا میشه که میخوای که اگر گپم کدام وقت اگر کسی را میبینی کدام خانم اگر ببینن که آوازشان صحیح آوازشان نمیبره گلون درد میباشه اگر چاپای دستا اگر در سر گلونشان اگر که دیدن که میفهمین که کسی را چیز کرده فشار یا میخواست که پیچک کنه یا کدام ضرر برسانه این یک علامات اینمی خشونت است بین زن و شوهر و زیادتر وقت شوهرها که چیز میکنه قار میشه خانم خود از گلونش میگیره
And sometimes, well, John, it's actually not even hands. Sometimes they'll use like a rope, or they'll use a cable to do it because sometimes they don't want to leave fingerprints, right?
That's good, yeah.
So that's something that they use, and that can also create a lot of problems with, like, drooling, like. Because the blood veins are being impacted by the strangulation, it's hard for them to control things that happen afterwards. Like, things that we can control when our necks and our throats and our bodies are working properly. So, they'll be talking and out of nowhere they might be unable to control their drooling. Or they might be very nauseous a lot of times. They might be vomiting a lot of times because, everything that's going on from the impact from being strangulated.
Yeah. دیگه بازم دوستا عزیزا دیگه طریقه چیز است ضرر رساندن به خانم که می باشه از طریق رسپاند یا دیگه استفاده چادر میتونه که شوه دیگه این چیزا رو شما در فکر بگیرین که به خاطر کدام یا شوهرها یا خانم‌ها که باشه نمیخواد که چاپای دستشون یا نشانشان در گلون یک چیز یا در اولاد خود یا در سر خانم خود یا کدام وقتا مادر پدر خودم چیز میکنن میزنن یا ضرر میرسانه بهشان.
Another thing that we've seen victims who have been physically abused is difficulty breathing. So they're having a really hard time breathing and they sound like they're hyperventilating, which is basically a rapid breath. Like they're just like fighting, trying to breathe really, really, really fast, and just having a really hard time being able to breathe.
So I wanted to discuss certain things, but before we do that, I do have a video. I think I want to go ahead and discuss this, and I'll play the video, and then when we come back, maybe we kind of go on a quick break, and then we come back and we'll continue with the topic. What do you think?
Sure.
Good? Awesome. So, dear brothers and sisters, please, we're going to go ahead and show you guys a video which I want you guys to see, and then when we come back, we'll go ahead and discuss more.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How's it going? Things are good, things are good. No questions from anybody, just something on my mind. Something that's been on my mind for a long time. something that we have a big problem with all over the Muslim world. I thought it was like a Desi thing. It's not. It's all over the Muslim world. It's hitting women, dude, and justifying it from Quran. Because you know the ayah says وَضْرِبُهُنَّ and hit them. And so using that to say, well, you're obviously allowed to hit women. And when I started looking up this subject, I wasn't satisfied with stuff that I read. It just didn't add up. So I decided to keep on digging. Until a couple of years ago, I went to, I still remember, Professor Abdul Halim in Oxford. And I sat with him and I took my Quran questions to him, and this was one of them. Help me understand this ayah. Right? And I want to tell you, I want to share with you what I learned from him and my own thoughts on it. But before I do, you know, most of the time when we talk about this ayah, we're like explaining this to non-Muslims.
Yeah.
Which is so ingenuine, dude. We need to have a conversation about this with Muslims.
Yeah.
This is our faith. This is our book. This is what we believe. I believe every single ayah is perfect. Every single ayah could not be any better than it is. It's the most beautiful gift of Allah on this earth. No ayat should be considered a curse. No ayat should be considered negative or, you know, why is that here?
Yeah.
Because if you even question why is this here, you're questioning the idea of Allah revealing Himself. Like the idea of Allah sending revelation, the greatest gift ever given. Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. The unimaginably merciful is the one who taught the Quran. Like, even if you question or you think less of one ayah, what good is your iman? Where'd it go? So protecting the integrity of this ayah to me is like fundamental, because if, you know, and Muslim women, many Muslim women I've met have a problem with this ayah. And their concern is legitimate. But to have a problem with an ayah and you're Muslim, there needs to be something resolved here. Because you can I have a problem understanding this ayah, which is a little bit different from, actually no, it's a world different from, I have a problem with this ayah. You know, that's a crime. That's about faith itself, you know?
But how does one understand it?
That's the thing, right? Let's help people understand it. So first and foremost, every surah is perfect. No ayah, you cannot take an ayah out of a surah, put it in a different surah. That's the first thing, right? So this belongs to Surah An-Nisa. This means it does not belong in Surah Al-Ma'idah or Tawbah or Baqarah, or it belongs in Surah An-Nisa. And Surah An-Nisa is a perfect conversation orchestrated by Allah, intended as such. In other words, the first thing when we understand an ayah is which surah is it placed in, what conversation is it a part of. So Surah An-Nisa has a number of legal instructions. It talks about another big subject for a lot of people, polygamy. It talks about inheritance law. It talks about the punishment of adultery. It talks the early punishments for adultery, at least. It talks about exceptional cases. It talks about who is it haram for you to marry. Now, you know what all of those things have in common? Every one of them, when Allah talks about them, He talks about the most unusual cases. That's the common thread that ties all of these together, the most unusual cases. First unusual case, if you were raising 4 girls as orphans, and they gained a certain age, and they're not your mahram, they're not part of your family, you're allowed to marry one of them, or 2 of them, or 3 of them, or whatever. Is that a usual case? Somebody raising 4 orphan girls? Or even polygamy, when it's talked about, which is a separate subject, it's talked about in the most unusual circumstance. You see what I'm saying? Even more unusual. Like, it's uncomfortable even to listen. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ وَبَنَاتُكُمْ وَخَالَاتُكُمْ. Your mothers are haram for you to marry. Your aunts, your daughters are haram for you to marry. Your aunts are... Why would Allah say that? He's not talking about normal circumstances. He's talking about psychologically disturbed, weird people out there. Some crazy case can happen, so this needs to be spelled out. See, the thing with law is not for law-abiding citizens. Actually, laws are for criminals. They cover the periphery of society, not the main center of society. That's what Surah An-Nisa is doing. It's actually covering the outlying, crazy case situations. Here's what you're going to do. Now you know how to deal with these extreme situations, which automatically covers all the normal situations, right? If you keep that in mind, then you get to this ayah. And even that hit them is part of a very long ayah, which begins with men are caretakers of women. Now tell me, caretaker, qawwam, The same word shares a root with the name of Allah, Qayyum. Allah is the caretaker of everything. Do you imagine Allah is caretaker hitting, striking?
No.
Is that part of His care? That's not the thought that comes in your mind when you think of taking care. It's already being negated as the ayah begins. And what are they in authority in what sense? قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Because Allah gave some preference over others. Allah did not say because Allah gave men preference over women. He could have said that, it's His words. He could have said بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الرِّجَالَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ أو بِمَا فَضَّلَهُمُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِنَّ. He could have said it. Because Allah preferred men over. He said because Allah gave some preferences to some over others. In other words, women have certain things they have preference in. So Allah gave them certain benefits, and men were given certain benefits. And in this case, men have been given the responsibility of maintaining women. Okay, fine. وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. And because of what they spend from their money. فَالصَّالِحَاتُ قَانِتَاتٌ حَافِظَاتٌ لِلْغَيْبِ بِمَا حَفِظَ اللَّهِ. Then good women are subservient to Allah. I'm adding to Allah because that's what qunut is used in the Quran. It's not subservient to their husbands. It's qunut everywhere in the Quran, like dua al-qunut. Qaniteen, qumu lillahi qaniteen. Is every time it's used for Allah. How are you going to say now it's being used for husbands? Good women are subservient to Allah. Hafidhatun lil ghayb, they're guardians of what is in the unseen. Meaning they guard their dignity and they guard their faith. Even when their husband's not around. Hafidhatun lil ghayb. That's one of the meanings. There are other meanings too. Bima hafidhullah, on account of what Allah decided that should be guarded. Then He says, now, by the way, so far they're obedient to Allah and they guard the chastity of the marriage and their own chastity. They guard the integrity. They don't cheat on their husbands, basically. Okay. Now He says, وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ نُشُوزَهُنَّ. And as for those from whom you are afraid of their uprising. That's the next part. Now, I asked Professor Abdul Halim, what is this uprising? Because this uprising is used later on in the surah when a man is abusive to his wife. So a man potentially hitting his wife or hurting her or going against her in some aggressive way, that's also nushuz. Okay? وَإِنْ إِمْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا nushuzan. If a woman was afraid from her husband of an uprising, meaning some kind of outrageous behavior. The question though is, what is outrageous behavior for women? Now some people say outrageous behavior for women is, I asked her to put 2 spoons of chai, she put 3. Idrazara. That's nushuz. Quran says that's an uprising. Or she raised her voice. So I asked Professor Abdul Halim, what is nushuz? And he's like, you know the ayah? It has a contrast. Here are good women, and here are women that have an uprising. Which means they do the opposite of what good women do. Good women are subservient to Allah. This woman has now started defying Allah. Good women are loyal to their husbands. This woman is now what? Cheating on her husband. And the husband says, Allah says to the husband, if you're afraid that she's doing this, not that she is doing it, but you're afraid that she's doing it. So he hasn't done it yet, but he's developing a fear and it's getting bigger and bigger. And وَاللَّاتِي تَخَافُونَ as opposed to khiftum, not you were afraid, but you continue to be afraid. In other words, he's getting suspicious and he's getting more suspicious, he's getting more suspicious. It's lingering, he notices things about her that he's like, what's going on here? And so he said, Allah says, فَعِذُوهُنَّ, then give them advice. Listen, something's happening. Why are you going out late at night with makeup on? Or what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I need to know. Try to counsel them. Doesn't work. You tried it regularly, it didn't work. وَهْجُرُوهُنَّ, leave the bed. Abandon them. Fil madaji', in the beds. Don't sleep with them. You're disgusted by what you know is, the fear is growing. You haven't seen anything, but the fear is growing. It's gotten really, really bad. Now it gets to the worst case. The worst case is she's actually caught. He sees her with another man. Something crazy. And he sees this and he loses his mind. And what does he do? He hits her. By the way, let's take Muslim out of this. Some dude, not even married, with his girlfriend, he sees another man. What did you do? Is that a natural well, a girl would do it, a guy would do it.
Yeah, snaps.
You snap. Now he hit her, or he pushed her, something he did, and he feels bad.
Yeah.
How could I have done that? Allah says, I'm giving you license in that crazy case. I'll let you get away with that one. If you look at the, and I, by the way, when I discussed this, Professor Abdul Halim, right? Remarkable Quran scholar. He's the one sharing this with me, and I'm like, whoa, I ain't never heard that before. So that night, I had dinner with a bunch of scholars, traditional scholars. I'm not going to name them. I don't want to blast anybody. And I was the only kind of like, dressed like a kafir kind of, and they're all traditionally dressed ulama, and so I was like, let's stir up some trouble around here. So I was studying the ayah about hitting women with Professor Abdul Halim this morning. And they're like, really? What did he say? And I shared this with them. And this is actually it's restricted only to a case of repeated and perpetual infidelity from a wife, and it drives the man nuts, and then he eventually ended up losing his cool. And Allah says, people get killed over this sort of thing, by the way. And by the way, hitting, then comes the sunnah. How much can you hit? How can you hit? The Prophet ﷺ, the sunnah will dictate that you can't actually hit hard ever. Yeah. You can't ever, hit in a way that even the skin would turn red and tap or whatever. That's a separate problem. But this is restricted to the craziest case. It's not the norm. It's not the norm. So I said that. That is not the norm. That is the exception. And to use that as a norm is a crime against the Quran.
How'd it go?
I'm expecting fireworks. Yeah. The senior guy among them, you know what he says? Makes sense, we believe that too.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, no. You do? He goes, of course. I was like, why don't you ever say it? I literally just called him out, I couldn't help myself. Why is this the first time I'm learning this?
Yeah.
And he says, people aren't mature enough to learn these things yet, and they won't be able to, people might take advantage of it. And I was like,
seems like
that is disturbing, Sheikh man. Because your job is to clarify the religion for people.
Yeah.
And now you're going to decide what's in their best interest and keep. It's just messed up. But there are other interpretations. Now don't even hit them, just go away from them.
Yeah.
I'm not as convinced of them from linguistics perspective. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But from the context. Now here's the thing. فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ If they start obeying you. The question is, if you think your wife is cheating on you, why don't you just leave her?
Yeah.
Because ayat in the Quran are there. If you think she's, you can accuse her, you can do. Now if you accuse in a Muslim society, then you're going to accuse and they're going to go to court and the entire family will be humiliated and she might even be executed, whatever.
Yeah.
Proceedings are going to happen. And if she doesn't want to admit to it, she'll have to declare that Allah's curse should be on her if she's lying. Mm-hmm. Do you hate her that much that you want Allah's curse to be on her forever? And maybe there are kids involved, there's other family involved, there are emotions involved. Maybe you don't want to leave her. Maybe you want to move on from this incident. So he says, if they start obeying you, then don't make a case against them again. فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا Start over. Don't bring it up again. Move on. If you're gonna move on, then you better move on.
Wow.
Don't ever bring it up again. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيًّا كَبِيرًا Allah is the ultimately high. Why did Allah say it in this ayah? Why did He say He's the ultimately high? Because Allah did not give you the height. He's the ultimately high. He's the big one. He's Kabir, not you. He put the man in his place at the end of this ayah. Now, from the context, this ayah is actually not about hitting women at all. It's about protecting the fidelity and the loyalty inside a marriage. That's what it's about. And what a man is afraid of that's happening. By the way, why use the word fear? If somebody says, I'm afraid of the uprising of my wife, fear, by the way, is she put too much shy? I'm so scared.
Yeah.
It's not something you're scared of. That's something you're mad about.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience.
But if a husband thinks his wife is cheating, is he scared?
Yeah.
Yeah. The word fear in any other interpretation doesn't add up. How are you afraid that she leaves the bathroom door open? How are you afraid that she raises her voice? That has nothing to do with fear.
Yeah, that's actually a position of power.
That's a position of power. And the position of power has been taken away at the end. Can you imagine how much abuse of Allah's word is being done in His name? And then look, it began with qawamun, right? Caretakers, which already tells you, why would you hit someone when you're their caretaker? And then ayat right after, oh, wa'budu Allah wa bil walidaini ihsanan wa bidhil qurba wal jari dhil qurba wal jari dhil jud. Oh, what? Be the best to your parents, be the best to close relatives, be the best to your neighbors, be the best to people you live next door to, your next door neighbors, and also the people you commute next to. وَصَاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. The one who's sitting next to you on a plane or on a bus or on a camel, or be the best to them. Okay, be the best to everyone else, just smack around your wife, huh? What? Wait, I don't even understand how they can. This kind of abuse is something Allah talks about in the Quran. الَّذِينَ جَعَلُوا الْقُرْآنَ عِضِينَ. They took the Quran and they tore it to pieces. They tear this piece out, hit them. They tear that piece out, and the rest of the speech doesn't even matter to them. And that's the crime they commit. Subhanallah.
Because I think it's self-serving. Sometimes
That's exactly right.
Such a big problem that
Look, if you're gonna hit people, you've got an issue.
yeah,
Don't drag the religion into it.
yeah,
That's your psychological trauma. You've got a serious problem. You need psychiatric help. And if women are being hit, they better seek protection. They better seek counsel, share it with someone, as embarrassing as it is. Because when there's physical abuse, what comes with it is psychological abuse. So the guy will make her feel like scum. He'll make her feel like she deserves it. She'll start thinking she deserves it. They're so beat sometimes, they actually think they deserve it. It's good for them. That's the height of psychological abuse and trauma, right? And those kinds of women, they need to, if a woman finds herself in that situation, she needs to get help. She needs to get family involved. I don't want to tell you, I don't want to disturb my parents. Yes, you do. Go disturb your parents. Your mother bore a lot heavier than this. She gave you birth. She almost died. So if you're worried about bothering your mom, she's already been bothered way more than you can ever imagine. Go tell your mom. Tell someone, help deal with it as a family. If not, just at least go to a professional, somebody outside. But this should not go unanswered. And nobody should ever think nobody else cares. Because that's what the abuser does.
Yeah.
Abusers, as they abuse you, they tell you, who's going to care about you?
yeah,
Who cares about you? I'm doing you a favor. That's how they frame it. And they just develop this unfortunate mindset that keeps them imprisoned, not only in that relationship, but even in their mind they're imprisoned. And that needs to be just broken.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
And what do you say about some people who say the context of how the word فَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا, like how the word
Yeah.
daraba is used in the Quran
Yeah.
isn't necessary, is used in different ways as well.
It is used in different ways. I didn't want to get technical about it, but the way that it's used in this ayah, وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, there's no preposition with it. And there's nothing that indicates that it's being used figuratively.
Okay.
So to me, that's a stretch. From a language perspective, that's a pretty big stretch. And I haven't exhausted study in classical scholarship. I don't know if anybody even went that route, but I know that opinion does exist. So I do respect it as an opinion. I'm not as convinced of it. Subhanallah. But look at it from the harshest interpretation could be that this is in the case of infidelity, and the softest interpretation could be this is about walking away from the relationship. Those are the two, and there's no other range. So in the end of the ayah, this is an ayah of practicality and something we're supposed to love. Subhanallah. May Allah Azza wa Jal help the Muslims get out of abuse, whether or not they're being abused or whether they're the abusers themselves. Subhanallah. Barakallahu fikum. See you next time, inshallah.
Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters. I know it's a long video. I hope you guys were able to bear with us for that period of time. Just wanted to also kind of touch bases on the importance of the video. So I hope you guys paid attention on what was said. Islamically, when it comes to the relationship between a husband and a wife, and what are the criteria for when a certain situation does take place, and how as human beings, what are some of our trigger points, and what do we do, as biologically, what are some of our how do we automatically kind of react to certain situations, and that was what was said in the video. And do you have anything else that you like to discuss or share?
I really like the video. I think that was a really good example of kind of what our prophets have taught us and Islam teaches us versus what a lot of humans do in our day-to-day lives, and the discrepancy between the two.
Definitely. And then, as Lama John had mentioned earlier, that even some of the signs and symptoms of domestic violence, and one of them was, before we went and we played the video, was that the challenge of breathing. When you're strangling, a partner is strangling their spouse. At any point of time, you'll see and you'll understand that by physically that person is damaged internally. And not just that, but even as we discussed, they have a harder time swallowing things, fluids. They have a hard time speaking up loudly because there's been damage done to their neck and to their vocal cord, and for that it even becomes challenging for them to breathe in and breathe out. So please be aware of that, so that there's something wrong in that scenario, in that relationship.
Something else we see in victims of domestic violence, especially when we're talking about physical abuse, is restlessness. Victims tend to be always kind of on their toes, always nervous about, something happening, anxious looking. They're always moving, they're always doing something. And you look at them and you're like, relax, calm down, like what's wrong? Those are one of the signs you can see that this person is just constantly moving around, constantly restless, like almost not making sense. Like the things they're saying doesn't even make sense. You see that. You also see that they're kind of defensive, like they're always like combative. They're always ready to kind of like be like, no, nothing's wrong. If you ask them what's wrong, like, hey, what's going on? Why are you so restless? No, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. Like they're so quick to jump and say that everything's fine, that everything is normal, because it's like they don't want to bring attention to it, right? They're trying to hide what's going on because of the fear of, that person that's noticing these things going to the perpetrator and saying, I know what you're doing to my friend, to my family member, my colleague. That's something else we see. Something also we see is these victims tend to have a really hard time concentrating. Their focus isn't that good. You could also say that they're also having post-traumatic stress disorder and symptoms like that, where they're just like having flashbacks of moments where they were either beaten or something stressful and traumatic that had occurred to them. They're in those moments and they're having a really hard time being present, being able to focus on the task at hand. So this could look like they're supposed to be at work and they're supposed to be typing something on the computer, and out of nowhere their brain, their mind goes to a moment in the back, and they feel so unsafe. They feel like they're in that moment again where their husband is like hitting them, beating them, and it's hard for them to be present. So they're losing that focus, they're losing that concentration. They also might be very agitated. So we talked about like combativeness and being defensive, but they can also look very irritated, very agitated, very annoyed easily. So they might get mad more often. They might kind of say like, stop bothering me, stop asking me questions, like nothing's wrong with me, get away from me, stop annoying me, things like that. And they might also have hallucinations. So they might, feel so on their toes. They might be like, oh no, somebody's here. I know someone's here. I know my husband's here. I know he's waiting downstairs. I can't go downstairs. He's going to hit me. So they sometimes might even have hallucinations and think that there's people around them that are going to cause them harm when there isn't.
Okay. So as we can see, and what I'm hearing is that it kind of creates a pattern for that individual where they trap themselves in their own mind. So that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you had mentioned earlier, and which was said well, is that they're very fast. They're moving very fastly. They're thinking that anything that they do, it seems like you're in trouble basically.
Yeah.
Like anything, even if you're outside, if you were to talk to somebody, if you were to do something without the consent, or basically letting your partner know, the abusive partner know, that you're in trouble, that you would physically or psychologically or some form of way you would be abused. And for that you kind of reevaluate you don't think twice. Biologically your body's been wired that if this happens, there's going to be an abuse. So for that, don't
Yeah.
Don't think twice.
You're trying to remain like in composure, but you're having such a difficult time doing so because a lot of times the symptoms are evident on your face. You might have lines around your neck. You might have like a red bloody eye or a blue eye. There's a lot of signs on your body, so you're already so nervous about people asking you questions about the things you're doing. But there's also that part of you've been verbally abused so much, you've been told over and over that you're stupid and you're nothing and you can't do anything, that you know, when you go to your work setting or other settings, like you question yourself too.
You question your abilities
Yeah.
if you are, you know, capable of doing anything basically
Yeah.
in life, and that plays a big toll. And I'm glad that you said that, is that also plays a big toll, not just in your spouse's relationship, but it also plays a big toll in your relationship with your children, with you know, your family, your parents, your aunts, your cousins, even, you know, friends outside or in the community, or like you said, workplace, community places. So this is all kind of intertwined together. So you have to be mindful of these things. Can you want to say and share it in Pashto so that way I can do it in Dari? Please.
Just the last part.
Sure.
So منګه خبرې کول د دې په باره کې چې یو کس چې کور کې واغل خوري د هغې په مخ باندې کم داسې خبرې دي شیونه دي چې ښکاري نور خلکو ته که نه مخکې سا کې موږ ویلي وو چې اواز یې بدلېږي ورته مشکل ده چې خبرې وکړي که نه خو نور شیان چې موږ هم ګورو دا ده چې هغو ته ډېر مشکله ده چې breathe. How do you say breathe? ساس واخلي، نفس واخلي. هغه ته ډېر مشکل ده چې نفس واخلي. ورته داسې فکر کوي چې ورته هېڅ هوا نه راځي. او همیشه موږ هم خبره اورو چې او ماته هوا نه راځي، زه نه کوم چې نفس واخلم. داسې شیونه موږ ګورو. موږ هم دا ګورو چې دا کسان ورته ډېر مشکله ده چې داسې آرام کیني، همیشه عجله کې دي. همیشه چې دا کسان ګوري شیونه ډېر زر 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 کوي، ډېر عجله کې دي. او کله ته ورنه پوښتنه کوي چې څه خبره ده، ته ولې دومره داسې سټرس غوندې ښکاري، هغوی ډېر ځکه په کارېږي وایي نه نه هېڅ خبره نشته، ته ولې ما نه دا سوالونه پوښتنه کوې، دا زما معامله ده، ته خپل معامله کې اوسېږه، ما نه داسې سوالونه پوښتنه مه کوه. ډېر ځکه په کارېږي د دې په خاطر چې هغوی نه غواړي چې یو څوک پوه شي چې د دوی ژوند کې کومه خبره ده، کوم مشکلات ده. بل شیونه چې موږ داسې کسانو کې ګورو چې دا ده چې ډېر مشکل لري چې د یاد نه ډېر شیونه ځکه ځي، نه کاشي چې فکر یې خراب ده او ورته مشکله ده چې
پام یې نه کېږي په یو کار ورته ورکړي یا یو خپله ځان ته وایي دا کار باید وکړم، بیا سبا یا پسته
بیا نه بیخي ځي. او کار کې داسې خبرې ډېر زیات کېږي چې یو همکار راځي وایي دا شاید یې کړې ده، او وایي نه دا د شي په باره کې خبرې کوي، تا خو ما کله پوښتنه ونه کړه چې دا چاته به خلاص کړي،
داسې معلومات
یاد نه ځي.
د څلېروي ساعته کوم چرت کې ده، همدغه چرت کې د کور ته لاړ شوم
هېڅ پام یې نشته،
وهلو کې نور ټکولو شیونه کېږي،
پام یې نه کېږي د دې شیانو ته چې هماغه وخت کې ورسره کېږي، د دې په خاطر چې هغو چې کار کې مو اوسېږي د هغو فکر بل چېرته ده، د هغو فکر دې شا کې ده چې پرون ما سره داسې بد حادثه شوې وه، نن چې کور ته لاړ شم بیا به هم داسې کار ما سره
وشي، زما ژوند بیا هسې ترخسي.
او دا کسان هم دومره وهل خوري چې د دوی مغزو باندې ډېر بد تاثیر لري. او کله کله داسې کسانو کې موږ دا ګورو چې دوی فکر کوي چې اما انسان اما کورټۍ کې ورسره ده، اما کار کې ورسره ده، یا مکتب کې ورسره ده، خو انسان هلته نشته. دا یو د
دماغي خپله تکلیف پیدا کېږي، رواني
داسې درد غوندې پیدا کېږي چې دا کس همدلته زه دا کس ګورم، خو نور خلک چې وګوري هلته څوک نشته.
خو یو ډار ورباندې هغه کېږي، خو یو ډار پیدا کېږي چې زه که اوس کار کوم اوسم باید فکر مې ونیسم، هغه باوجود هم پوهېږم که څوک نشته د کورنۍ کوم خلک ما سره نشته دي، بیا هم یو ډار کېږم چې روزانه زه وهل خورم یا روزانه ما ته کوم شی بد نومونه وایي، او هماغه فکر کې د راځي او یو تکلیف د اعصاب هم بیا تاسو ته پیدا کېږي. هماغه خاطر ډېر کوشش کوو که تاسو ته وایو که کولی سئ همدې او علاماتونه باندې پوه سي او کومک لپاره مخکې راشي او هغه او کومک تاسو ته کومک ستاسو تاسو باید هغه سي پوه سي چې دلته یو مشکلات ده د تاسو ژوندگی کې او مخکې قدم ورکړي. دیگه دوستان عزیزا دیگه بازم دیگه ایره بخیر زبان داریم چیز میکنیم کم ذره میگویم که ما خودمان گفتیم که تو هسته که یک انسانه که در یک فامیلی که در خشونت که میشه یا زن یا شوهر که باشه یا تر وقت خانوما که هستن خفک شوهرها که سور خوار خفک میکنه از طریق گلون که هست صحیح نفس کشیده نمیتونه نان خورده صحیح نمیتونه چیزم میشه بسیار یک ترس فکری برشان پیدا میشه که اگر در وقت کارم برن 24 ساعت دانمو وقت چیز است دیگه یعنی انسان که است در 24 ساعت دیگه یک ترس است وقتی که کارم برسه این کارم کرده نمیتونه فکرشم پس در بخش خانه است امروز یا در فکرش این گپ میه که دیروز سر ما قارش شده بود که من در ویدیورم که پیشتر رشان دادم خود امام گفته بود گفت که این وقت آمده که اگر یک نانم خراب برای یا از برای دو پنجه چیز بوره 3 یا 4 چیز کم داره یک چای هم کم داره بسیار شیرین تر شود میزنه یک شوهر خانم خود میزنه یا کدام وقت خانم هم کسته سر شوهرای خود چیز میکنه گپ خراب میزنه یا وار میکنن دیگه خاطر از اینمی ما میخوایم کوشش کنیم که بهتان بگوییم که اینمی مشکلات ها که هست بسیار زیاد شده در خود جامعه همگی یک مشکلات نیست که صرف در بین افغان هاست یا در بین کل مسلمان ها این مشکلات در جامعه همگی است مگر یک فکر است یک فکر زندگی است که ما اینمی تو کلان شدیم اینمی تو پیش میریم که یکی دیگه خود و اونمو خاطر ما آمدیم که گپ بزنیم صحبت کنیم که یکی از یک پرابلم است یک پرابلم خود ما که ما یاد گرفتیم از خورترکی از دیدن فامیلی خود ما مادر پدر خود که میبینیم یا کاکای خود خالای خود یا بچه کاکای خود یا هم کس دانمو راه میرن پیش میرن مگر که اگر اینمی خود ریسرچ و ساینس و چیزا رو ما اگر بخونیم صحیح خودتان هم میفهمین یا ما میفهمیم که کل کار کس غلط است به خاطر از اونمو ما آمدیم که کتان اینمی گپا رو شریک کنیم که کم ذره چشم بازی شود مگر خیر باشه دوستا هست که فکر نمیکنن بس وا فکرشان است که این گپا صحیح نیست و کار خود شخصی تان است مگر از خود ما که اینمی تو که کیسا را دیدیم یا خود ما که چیزا رو میخوانیم در این بخش روانشناسی از طریق فکر که چطور یک انسان خود از بین میکشه یا خود میکشه خاطر از اینمی چیزاست اینمی فشار زندگی فشار خود خانواده و دوستا دیگه یعنی زیادتر مشکلات های چیزت می باشه جامعه است که یک انسان بسیار تیله میکنه که بره خودکشی کنه دیگه گپ زیاد زدم دیگه بخیر پیش بریم so what's the next step and what can we do?
Something else we see is changes in vision and hearing and what we see with that is individuals who are victims tend to have blurry vision or they'll say black and white vision. Sometimes their vision just goes black or it'll go white.
What do you mean by they go black and white?
So they feel like they see just white light or they'll see like blackouts, like they can't see. Okay. And sometimes like they'll say that like, oh, I can't see, there's too much white light or there's black light, or they'll say like, I like, it's so hard for me to see what's going on. Everything is so blurry. Okay. Sometimes they might even talk about feeling like there's like this like fuzzy feeling around their eyes, like there's like some kind of like irritation around the eyes, and what that's from is being hit in the head. So we see that individuals are being punched in the face, in the head, in the eyes. They tend to develop those kind of symptoms.
So the body kind of automatically reacts and it kind of twitch in different ways because there's probably a dysfunctionality in the biological factor that they've been hit or they've been abused.
And so those are some things to watch out for people around those individuals. If you see someone kind of saying those things, if you're seeing someone saying like, I just feel like my vision is blurry, and they're always complaining about their vision, or they're feeling like the room just went black, but the room is not going black, or the room is turning completely white, but that's not your experience of it. it's kind of red flags to look out for,
Yeah.
you know. And then when you combine everything, okay, the person has a raspy voice, they're having a hard time talking, they're having a hard time breathing, you know, they're always agitated or annoyed, and now, you know, they're complaining about their visions. Like, these are red flags that you
Yep.
can look for and add up to check if there is some kind of, you know, serious problem happening with that individual.
And just to say that, I mean, like you said it perfectly, that yeah, these are damages that are being done to this individual physically. So they get punched in the eye, and, you know, their eyes get swollen. You know, a knuckle goes into the eye socket.
Yeah.
So a lot of these causes the damages to the eyes, to the brain. You know, when you get hit in the head. And one of the other things that you guys should notice, brothers and sisters, is that usually the perpetrator who's causing these damages do not allow their, you know, partners, the victims who's being hit and being abused, to go be seen by a doctor. And
Yes.
as we know what happens, right, when a person goes to the doctor and the doctor examines them, and then if they find any form of abuse, they know any abuse took in place, or there's marks, you know, they're mandated to make a report, and they will get law enforcement involved. So if you can make that call, again, if you're in a situation, we're not saying this. So this is the thing, we're not trying to say, or we're not trying to promote the fact that if you're in a relationship, if let's say your husband comes home and has a bad behavior of not doing house chores, just
Washing
that one
dishes.
thing, question, why, you know, or do like dishes, or like one thing, or, you know, or they yell here and there when,
Yeah.
when you talk, that's not a form of domestic violence abuse. Or let's say they have problem even with spending, but then they take care of you, or they, you know, they have, you know, they don't have you, let's say, locked in a house. You can do what you want to do.
You're
If
not
when you see
intimidating you with fear.
with fear, but when you see this is like multiple things. So these are like, you're being hit, you're being abused, you're being physically abused, you're being locked in the house, you're being told not to talk to your parents, not to talk to your family. There's no finances. When there's no alternatives, where you feel trapped, that's, you know, before you even get to that point, you have to know if it becomes more than 2 to 3 symptoms, or situations where these issues occur, you need to act fast. So if it's one thing where you know, you can reevaluate those things and work on it, but if it's not, then you would want to reconsider. So I don't want you guys thinking that we're trying to say, okay, this is what's happening, you guys need to leave your family. No, you need to work with your family, and then especially for those who are perpetrators, who know that they've caused harm, or they have this tendency of harming their spouses, you need help. That's just the general situation. You need help. You don't know how to cope. That means that when you were raised and you were getting older, you know, as you got older, you were told this is right, but in reality, you know, for you it's right. Cognitively, people think that that's right, but, you know, ethically and rationally, or Islamically, if you were to look at it, it's not right. So you have to weigh your pros and cons in that. So that's why you have to use your head in that sense.
And it's like a learning habit. If there's a child growing up seeing like dad beat mom, or mom beat dad, or anyone beat anyone within the home, again, it's not like that child's gonna grow up saying like, I'm gonna grow up and beat someone up. But what we see is that person's reaction as an adult is they get so frustrated that naturally that learning piece that they learned as a child just comes in, and they just swing.
Yeah, and that happens again. It's automatically done. You know, it's like when we say it's fight or flight mode. So it's your reaction. It's your first reaction, right? What happens if a car's coming your way? Your reaction is to get away from the car, right, before it hits you. So it becomes a reaction. There's certain things that are a reaction, how we're taught and how, you know, we're supposed to move and do things. And then there's certain things, like, you know, that when you're not taught properly, based off of, you know, what do you do when there's a situation or there's an argument amongst the family? How do you sit down? Again, these are situations where you'll see these perpetrators coming from homes where they've had no family, they had family who were abusive, or they ran home, or the house was run basically in a way where either the husband, you know, punished the rest of the family, or the wife punished the rest of the family, and that's what ended up happening.
Or we see kind of like what society teaches us, which is, you know, men should solve their problems by fighting. You know, even as boys, like we say, like, don't let anybody hit you, like, fight back. Don't let anyone bully you, like, fight back. So we kind of also implement these messages into our youth at a very young age. So we see aggression in the male, you know, population through physical, you know, through physical acts, so like hitting, beating, punching, these things. And then we see aggression in the female population through words.
and
Yeah.
abuse and trying to break somebody else's reputation.
Gossiping.
And these are things like, for instance, you can do these things. These are these are things that you can do. We can all do. But I think that the problem and the issue really becomes is that we learn it, and instead of you trying to use any of these tactics against somebody else who's trying to use it against you, a person would say something to you, but then you use that amongst your own family members. That's where the problem really occurs. So it's for you that you're not supposed to use these things on your own family members, for God's sakes. If somebody says something to you, you're supposed to use it back against them.
Yeah.
But what we've learned and what we realize with research is that we tend to use all of these challenges and these scenarios with our own family members because they're easy to pick on, and they're you feel comfortable. So for that, please be mindful of that. And then again, if you guys have any questions, please you guys can leave your comments on Facebook. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions, any suggestions. If you guys can, please give us a call. We'll love to we'd love to hear your guys' voices to see what is your thoughts on the topic of situation of domestic violence. Lambajan just wanted to discuss and see, should we go and I have a little video that it's kind of like a song and it's kind of like a poetry. It's like a poet rap song.
Sure.
Regarding domestic violence, should we go watch that, or do you want to just keep going further and then
Maybe
talk about some more?
Maybe finish just two more points
Okay.
and then go to the video.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So just the last two signs that I want to talk about is hearing.
Okay.
So again, like we talked about, when you're being hit all the time, like you might be getting hit in the face, in the ear. So individuals who are being hit will always complain about hearing, like either they can't hear anything, or you'll see them complain about like hearing a buzzing, like a ringing sound, and they'll always say like, "Do you hear that? Do you hear like somebody? It's almost like a bell, or there's like some kind of ringing
It's like a
sound,
bee sound.
buzzing." Yes, or it's like I can't hear anything. So that's another sign to look out for. Something else is we have to remember that sometimes these individuals are not just being hit in the face. Sometimes they're being hit in the stomach. They're being hit in the chest. There's different ways of, I mean, when somebody's enraged, they're just throwing punches. It doesn't matter how, where, how hard. They're just they're just trying to cause as much damage as possible. So some things that we see in victims is they have headaches.
Okay.
They feel dizzy. They have a hard time using the restroom. So for them, it's either what we see the most is they can't hold urination or bowel movements. They just their body has gotten so damaged from the hitting that they have a difficult time making it to the restroom.
And a part of that is because there's a lot of internal bleeding that takes place, and not just that, but when you're hitting somebody,
Yeah.
you're causing
Damaging.
damage to the functionality, the system that's making your body work. So
Work,
when you
yeah.
hit that, it causes damage, so that causes a lot of dysfunctioning. So that's
Yeah.
what ends up happening.
And so those were like the last 2 points that I'm wanting to kind of point out. And just when you look at someone, just look for those symptoms. Do they have a red eye? Does their eye look like it's like a blood socket, like it's almost like bleeding? Do they have marks on their necks? Do they have fingerprints on their necks? Is there a line that looks like a rope was held to their neck? Do they have bruises on their face or on their bodies? Do they have, a lip that's, got a cut on it and bleeding? These are some signs to look for in a person who's being physically abused. So if you want to, interpret that into Farsi.
انشالله دوستان عزیزا دیگه لمبجان که است خودش هم چیز کرد، تشریح بسیار خوب کرد. میخواد که بگه که ما خود ما باید بفهمیم که یک انسان که میبینیم که که بفهمیم که یک فامیلی یا در یک ازدواج خشونت یا مشکلات هست، باید ما بفهمیم که از چشمش خون میریزه یا بسیار سرخ میگیره. باید ببینیم گردنشان، دستایش که کدام وقت زده شده یا کدام کبوتی داشته باشه. دیگه یک چیز خوبه که لمبجان گفت که در بین خانم‌ها که هستن یک مشکلات شکم از طریق شکم که هست چیز میشه، کنترل کرده، جان خود کنترل کرده نمیتونه. و این خاطر بسیار وقت چی شده، بسیار که بوکس و لغت که یک انسان بزنی شکم بسیار خراب میکنه. دونمو خودش گرفتار کرده نمیتونه اونمو خاطر چیز میشه میره زود باید بره تشناب بره استفاده شه یا خون میریزه دیگه این چیزا که هستن این یک مشکلات بسیار شدید و بسیار خراب چیز شده افتی در جامعه ما
And then they have headaches and they feel dizzy as well and they have memory loss.
و دیگه که هست چیز میشه در بین نمی دوستا که هست سرشان 24 ساعت چیز میشه میگرده و فکر میکنه که چپه میشم و دیگه این هست که یادداشت فراموشی چیز میشه با حسابش یادداشت فراموشی چیز میشه تکلیف پیدا میشه برشان دهی بخشم. So what we can do is maybe go for a video, and when we come back, we'll go ahead and discuss it. So please watch this video. I know I have one question from Facebook from Brother Dean Fazeli as well. And then what we can do is when we come back, we can answer that question, his question or his suggestion. Before we do that, please stay tuned with us and enjoy this video. It's a nice little video that discusses the importance of husband and wife. In a family, and when we come back we'll go and discuss more.
بيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. The weakest of homes is the home of the spider, if only they knew. And it's not just because of the web, but also for what happens inside it too. The most fragile of homes, home to the most ferocious of family feuds, a husband and wife relationship that is solely based on being used for consummation. See, as soon as they finish mating, the wife would then consume the body of her own husband. It's disgusting, and so can the children be too. See, as soon as they mature, they would chew upon their own mother as a source of food. It's sinister, it's crude, I don't want to imagine it, but it's true. And such the examples that are used, not because God can be cruel, but for God to prove that the weakest of homes are those in which the inhabitants are abused. See, marriages are meant to bring happiness, and the home is a refuge of tranquility and comfort to all those who walk through. And if you ever do happen to fall into disputes, you must learn to understand that the marriage isn't always about you. Rather, it's learning to live together as one, although we are still living together as two. In a home where everybody knows that they belong, with love, kindness, and mercy, so we could all just get along, and there's no need for fighting every time something small goes wrong. Because you can't build a home upon violence and then expect it to stand strong. I mean, what kind of man would harm his wife in the darkness of the night, leaving her to bleed as he scars her for life, having to cover up her bruises as she tries to hide them from sight? See, he's so focused on her responsibilities, but fails to realize that he also owes her rights. See, as a husband, you're meant to provide, protect, respect, guide, and guard her. You are her garment, her lifelong partner, her Prince Charming who should charm her, her knight in shining armor. But a night has turned into a nightmare as he spends his nights trying to harm her. As she begs him on her knees, please, I need you to be calmer. I urge you, see, patience is a virtue. I never even heard you. I promise I didn't mean to hurt you. Please don't be mad. And please don't let the kids see, cause it's not right for a dad. It's sickening, it's sad that such scenes are happening in reality within the homes of so many broken families. It's a calamity that we forgot what the meaning of marriage is. Did you forget that the best of you in character is he who is best to his wife? The best of advice from the one who never harmed a servant, child, or wife in his whole entire life. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He was the best of examples in how to treat a woman right. See, if his wife had cooked something he had liked, he would eat it, and if he didn't, he would leave it without expressing an ounce of dislike. He would even refuse an invitation to food until his wife had also received an invite, and he would help around the house too, just to make her workload light. He was the pinnacle of being polite. And he taught us that the strongest of men is not he who knows how to fight, but rather he who restrains his anger right at the moment of strife. So have patience, brother. I mean, you wouldn't allow it for your own mother, daughter, or sister. You wouldn't bear to watch another man punch and kick her, so the next time you even think to cause her trauma and hit her, you need to understand that she too is another man's mother, daughter, or sister. So dear sister, no human being deserves to live a life of violence alone, so if he doesn't treat you with kindness, don't live in silence trying to fight this on your own. Rather seek help from God first, and don't be afraid to then pick up the phone and let your people know that you are no longer willing to live in the weakest of homes. Violence against women? Islam says no.
Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you looked at it, it was actually a very beautiful kind of like a riddle discussed in a poetry. It's kind of like a spoken word.
Yeah.
And if we look at it, how beautifully this brother has discussed and shared, the importance of, being in the footsteps of, the husband, the wife, the kids, and basically discussing, the hardship of, a family that they, that a family goes through, and what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing, and what are the fears like in a household like that. And I really appreciate the fact that, the way he was just so into, his poetry, really, kind of helps you understand that even himself, I don't know, if it was, I don't know if personally or even something that he has experience with, but
yeah.
he really kind of showed us like it was like first-hand poetry given to us by him, and he was talking about his story. But not to say, and to move forward now, I know I discussed that I'm going to talk about one brother had a question, but before we do that, dear brothers and sisters, we have a book. It's for Hajj. This is by brother Masood Nasimi. He's one of our Muslim brothers in the community. Very well put, very well written books that he has in Dari and in English. It's the preparation of Hajj. I know Hajj, season is here. It's coming up next month. So if you're looking to have guidance in Dari or in English, please give us a call after the studio. We can go ahead and help you guys, acquire one of these books, and it gives you a good guideline of, what's the process like going to Hajj, and it talks about the rituals, the surahs, and the duas in English and in Arabic, and in Dari as well. So please, if you guys can do that, please give us a call and we can discuss it more. So Lamba John, before we go a little further, I know we have a question by Brother Dean Fazali, Brother Sean, and he says, how a person becomes aware of his or her problem, because problems are pointers. If a person is under stress, what is the first step to take, and where in life to change?
Okay. So the first step would be to become aware that you have a problem, so that you do have stressors in your life. And usually when we feel very stressed, the key there is that we might not have very strong boundaries with the things that we're doing. So learning how to create boundaries around the situation that's causing us a lot of stress, whether it's work and we feel like we're so stressed that we're bringing work home, creating the boundary of like, what, I'm going to give it my best when I'm here 8 to 5, but then when I go home, I'm not going to allow myself to take work home with me. Okay. That's creating a boundary. Also learning coping skills. So how can you calm yourself down, help yourself feel better when you do feel stressed? So we always talk about coping skills, going to the gym, going for a walk, talking to a friend, learning things that you can engage in to reduce that amount of stress. But the number one step would be, kind of looking at yourself and identifying what are my problems and what caused these problems. What are the triggers to these problems?
And now wanting to discuss, I know you have discussed something very greatly too, and then and going forward with this is that a lot of family members feel, or individuals feel like they're trapped.
Yes.
So what can we, how can we help in helping them understand that it's not a healthy form or way of life for them? And then how to make those changes in a safer way, even though they're in the house. I have families and individuals who feel trapped because they have no family, they have no finances, they have nowhere to go. So that also becomes a very challenging scenario for them.
Yeah, because usually we see that as a risk when you don't have community support, family, no hopes, ambitions. Those actually become risk factors to a person taking away their life, because for them it's no one's going to miss me. What difference will it make if I live or if I don't live? So we see those as risk factors, and those individuals feel like they're trapped because their life is never going to change. That's the key thought they have. You know, my life is never going to change and I can make no difference in this world. So as a therapist, something that I work on is, you know, kind of cognitive behavior therapy, helping them have different thoughts, helping them, you know, express the thoughts that they have that may be irrational, that are damaging to them. So things like, you know, my life makes no difference, or no one's going to miss me if I die. You know, we look at these thoughts and we start challenging those thoughts. We try to understand where they come from and understand what purpose those thoughts have. Are those thoughts helping you? Are they making you feel better, or are they making you feel worse? And what is the evidence behind these thoughts? Like, how do you know these thoughts are true? How do you know somebody's not going to miss you? How do you know you can't make a difference? How do you know your life won't change? So we work on addressing these thoughts and helping the person realize that these thoughts are not facts.
Okay.
They're just thoughts, you know, they're
Yeah.
just thoughts that are passing by, and teaching them to allow these thoughts to just pass by instead of, you know, sitting down and having this thought of like, my life makes no difference, and sitting in that feeling, in that emotion, in that thought, and not allowing themselves to feel better.
And so how can a person escape their thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing, right? You can't obviously
Yeah.
you can't just escape your thoughts, but how do you know what steps to take in order to at least have some form of control of
Yeah.
your thoughts? And the other way is to be mindful of your thoughts. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the number one step. But what is your take on that?
Well, my take on that is to come to therapy and see a therapist, a professional individual who is, you know, educated and trained to be able to help you, you know, recognize which thoughts are negative, unhelpful, and which thoughts are, you know, rational and they are helpful for you. My suggestion would also be to look for evidence. Look for the evidence that backs up your thoughts, because sometimes we get so caught up in our thoughts that we think they're true. You know, it's like a woman thinking, you know, maybe her husband's cheating. She's having these thoughts because she watches some drama. So what is the evidence behind the fact that your husband is cheating? You know, just because you watch a TV,
Yeah.
you know, channel that talks about it doesn't mean that your husband, who's bitch thing is just going to work and working and coming back, is cheating on you. So, you know, really looking at what is the evidence behind these thoughts that I have that these things are true.
And what I like I really appreciate the fact that you talked about, you know, the fact, you know, the notion that, you know, when a wife sits down and they watch TV and they feel like, you know, they learn from these TV shows as well,
Yeah.
is that please try to stay away from certain TV shows. I mean, as we know, a lot of these dramas that you guys watch, and this is something that everybody
Yes.
really talks about, is please try to do your best to stay away from it.
Yeah.
They're not true. You're making a reality that's fake.
Yeah.
You're trying to make that reality come
In your own life.
in your own life, but in reality you can't.
And the other thing is, like, with these shows that we're watching, they're so dramatic. And something we've always talked about is when you do something for so long, or you see something for so long, it becomes normal.
Yeah.
So then you create that within your own life. That high level of you know, drama becomes such a normal thing that you start creating in your own life, and others become so shocked and they feel so overwhelmed by it.
And a lot of that, dear brothers and sisters, take place because of, you know, the shows have taken over your emotions.
Yes.
So it becomes more of an attachment for you. And the other thing I want to discuss and share is that please, when you guys have negative thoughts or thoughts that kind of ramble in your head, you know, between a husband and a wife, where you guys start distrusting each other, seek therapy, get help.
Yeah.
If a family member tries to get involved in, or your environment is very important. You know, sometimes you have family members who are very toxic. Sometimes you have friends, and your environment around you is also very toxic. So they'll say things that are very, you know, that are very negative, and start giving you those negative thoughts where when you go home you start developing them. You'll start thinking that your wife is cheating on you, your wife doesn't love you anymore because, you know, they came from work, you know, they came from work, they work full time as you know, but they're tired.
Yeah.
Not asking them, you know, what's going on. You're assuming that you know, she's not cooking for me is
Or
because
she's-
she's not loving me. Maybe she's tired. Ask the question, what's going on? Maybe take some initiative for, you know, as a man too, to do some work.
help her.
Or the same thing with a spouse. You know, certain things that, you know, a man maybe not wanting to talk. You know, but you know, men tend to be quiet and they want to have their own quiet space, and that's, you know, that's something that with even research and seeing a lot of the husband and wife when they come in, what I've heard mainly is that, you know, as men, we need some time to just kind of think to ourselves. But when, you know, the women or sisters, when they come in and they say, I don't get too much attention, you know, my wife doesn't come and she doesn't talk to me, and the husband's
My
like,
husband.
the husband, you know, says, I'm tired, I just need 30 minutes by myself, let me just enjoy 30 minutes and then we'll talk. And then she starts creating negative thoughts in her own head. So that also becomes very troubling too. So please remember, these are important factors that we have to consider and know of as well.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
So, Lambajan, so now let's go further. I know we have more to talk about
Sure.
on discussing, you know, how to let your friends help you, and then maybe
Mm-hmm.
talk about, you know, how to get proper help.
Okay. So one way, as family members, as friends, as, you know, work colleagues, we can assist those individuals who are victims of domestic violence is bringing up the subject.
Okay.
I think a lot of individuals are sometimes like nervous, anxious about being able to say, like, you know, I see that you've been very anxious lately, or, you know, I'm noticing all these marks and bruises on your face, your body, you know, I'm concerned. A lot of people are afraid to point those things out. And I think it's because they don't know how to handle it, how to
Okay.
handle that conversation. But don't be afraid. Bring it up. Bring up that you notice these things, because that individual who might be going through all these things might be waiting for someone to, like, almost save them, for someone to notice, for someone to show that they care, and that, you know, just have empowerment. Like, that's something you were talking about earlier. Having someone there to empower them, that they don't have to stay in that kind of relationship. And it doesn't even have to be in that kind of relationship, to just get help.
Okay.
You know, there's this need of empowerment of, I see you, I see what's going on with you, I will walk side by side with you, I will help you see a professional. If you need to go to a doctor and your husband's not allowing, or your husband is always going to these doctor appointments with you because he's trying to control what you're saying to the doctor, like, I'll go with you to the doctor. As a friend, you know, you and I can go together, and I can be there to support you, for you to express your story. So that's one way for a friend and family member to get involved, is by speak up and tell them that you're noticing these differences in them.
Definitely. And this has become the problem, you know, very problematic in the sense that, again, I'll go back to it too. Maybe there's a lot of, you know, some of the viewers that are watching this is probably thinking that, you know, we're here to bash you guys, or we're here to talk down upon you. We're not. We're actually here to help. The victims itself. So if you're hurting your family member, and you know, but then you feel bad, like, why did I do this? But this is how things work for you. And it makes it easier for you. Number one, you're causing harm, which is never good to another human being, somebody who's close to you. And number two, you have a problem. You need to come and seek help. That's kind of the question. So please accept that. If you are somebody who's actually hitting all the time to feel good or to shut your partner down, you have a problem. That's kind of, that's what it is. Don't be ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Come and seek help. That's just the normal fact of life. You know, and again, I'll say it again, as the Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had stated that the best of amongst all men are those that have patience in the hardest times. So when you have patience, even if somebody says anything really badly, and you know, says something to you about your family, or let's say, well, I saw your wife going out. I mean, even I've heard this too with some of my clients, is that there's times where the wife goes crazy if they hear that the husband talked to another woman, in terms of, you know, when they meet someone out in public, and you know, the wife gets all angry, and the husband says, I just said hi. Or the husband, somebody tells the husband that I saw your wife at the store, which angers him. It's like, oh, why did this person see my wife? What, you know, there's the negative thoughts that go in your head that causes problems. So please remember, these are thoughts that we want to be able to work around. And I think Brother Sean has another question or thoughts. I think it's a suggestion, but we're like a fish unaware. So he's it's a little funny, but at the same time, he said that we're like a fish. He said we're like a fish unaware of our thoughts, kind of swimming in the world. And you know, and some of us are, and some of us really aren't like that. You know, because we are mechanically structured and raised to function in a society. So for that, we don't think that much. So that's the other part of work in life as well, is that we're also structured in a way where a lot of us kind of follow a certain rule and practice. It's either
It's almost like a robot.
it's like a robot. Some human beings are like a robot, right? They're not even aware of it. But the ones that are aware of it, and then they'll go ahead and they'll continue to cause these kind of punishment or violence or choking, hitting. Then you have a serious sickness. That's what I can say. It's a sickness for me. For me personally, I think it's a sickness. Somebody might not feel it that way, but it's just part of reality.
And I think mindfulness is one technique that individuals can use to
Okay.
become more aware of their thoughts, and just kind of be more present. I know with my clients, that's one of the things that I tend to push a lot, is teaching them how to be mindful, how to be present, because a lot of people do tend to act like a robot because there's this like need for survival and need to to move fast, to work fast, to just survive. And so sometimes we have to remind them that they need to kind of relax, calm down, become mindful of the processes that are happening in their mind and their body. So I would suggest that. So going back to how can you help someone who's a victim, as a friend, as a colleague, as a family member, just listen to them. Listen to them and empower them to know that they can talk to you. They can talk about how humiliating it feels for them to get beaten or raped or verbally abused or financially abused. Allow them to express how much sadness they feel from being hit by someone who they love. Allow them to discuss their anger, how angry they must feel to be, treated in such a way and not be able to walk out. I think a lot of victims get shamed a lot by the society and by the public. I hear in our own community a lot of times people just making judgments and saying, well, why don't you just leave the situation? Like, it's so easy, just walk out, grab your things and walk out. But for that individual, it's not easy. It's actually very difficult. And comments like that, like, it's so easy, just walk out.
Yeah.
It shames them. It makes them feel like they're more incapable.
It definitely does. And the other thing is that, as we had mentioned earlier, brothers and sisters, that if there's an issue that occurs, your first point of, going forward in the situation isn't to just leave the person. It's to actually confront the person, talk to them. If they don't
In a safe way.
In a safe way. If if they don't, for them, if they're not understanding, talk to their family, talk to your family. And then from there, ask them, seek therapy. If that person denies therapy, if a person who wants to make this relationship better, or if they want to work with you, if they want to see a better future, a happier life with you, they're willing to invest in going to therapy, or consult with others. If they don't, then that means that person has something to hide, or that person just doesn't want to talk, or that person just has bad intentions. That's what it falls under, and we have to be very mindful and be open-minded on this scenario, because this is a very sensitive scenario. Again, a part of this is that we live in America, and a biggest factor here is that amongst living in America is that when you get married or when you're creating a family, it's very different than it is back home. Back home is very different. You're part of a system. You're part of a system. You're forced to live in a system in a certain way. Same thing comes here. This is why sometimes I see certain families kind of see other people, and they get scared of oh, I have kids, they're raised here. How am I supposed to handle them? How am I supposed to be able to basically in a way manipulate my own kids? And I've seen that, and I've seen even kids manipulate their own parents. So for that, it's important again to work with your family members, work with your parents, work with your spouse. You guys have different roles. Try to appreciate it, try to respect each other's role. But if it's a one-way streak, again, it becomes you're not safe, and there's something in your heart that's at unease. So that's what ends up happening for you guys. So please remember, when these scenarios take place, talk to your husband, talk to your wife in a nicer, in a greater demeanor, in a safe demeanor. If that doesn't work out, talk to their family, talk to your family. Open up the conversation even bigger. If that doesn't work out, well, let's go to therapy. No. Okay, well, you're not investing in this. I mean, is it worth investing in a life that's, you're going to be unhappy, your kids are going to be unhappy, or do you want to live in a healthy environment, right, where it's not causing you stress, it's not causing your family stress? So you have to be very mindful of of these scenarios.
Something else as a friend, a family member, as a colleague that we can do for people who are victims
Yeah.
is remind them that it's not their fault. Sometimes we'll see victims trying to justify the actions of their spouses, whether it's the husband or the wife who are abusing them, but they'll say things like, it's not her fault, it's not his fault, I deserved it. I should have added less sugar to the tea. I should have, not added enough. I shouldn't have added so much spice to the dish I was making, or maybe I shouldn't have went to the store. Maybe I shouldn't have talked to that woman. They're always trying to justify the actions of the person who's abusing them, and they're always trying to take on the blame. So just remind them, you're not at fault. You didn't do anything wrong. That's not your fault. Because sometimes they need to hear that because they're in a situation where they're constantly told it's their fault. That they need to hear from someone that, you know what, no, it's not. Like, you're not insane, you're not crazy, the things you're doing are not deserving of you being abused this way.
Absolutely. And again, you guys want to be able to reevaluate things, and even before you guys get together, talk about what your guys' life's going to look like. That's why you have a negotiation period. You have a contract. Marriage is a contract. That's what it is. There's nothing else to it. And Islamically too, you use a contract, and and for you two people and two families to come to solidify and basically procreate. And that's what happens. And in that, we always suggest that if you have someone who is getting angry because of adding too much sugar, or these small little petty things, these are just really these are things and situations and scenarios that really don't make sense, and it makes the marriage worse. If this is a situation or a scenario where you see that a husband or a wife is cheating on each other or talking to others, those are serious topics and discussions that you need to talk about, not the little ones. Okay, when people come in, you didn't act this way, you didn't say this, or you didn't say that. So those are petty stuff. So remember, those aren't the bigger issues. The bigger issue is when things get physical, when people start hurting or financially abusing one another.
Something else I want to indicate is sometimes those individuals who are being abused might either say it's not their husband's fault or their wife's fault, but they also might deny it. Oh no, it's not a big deal. It's not a big problem. Every wife goes through this. Every husband goes through this. Every marriage goes through this. So they try to minimize the problem, or they'll deny, like, no, it's not a problem. I'm okay with it. It'll pass. It's gonna be okay. So they're in this area of denial. So as family, friends, and people that care about those individuals, we should remind them that no, this is a problem. Like, this isn't okay. This is not all right. You shouldn't have to go through this.
Yeah.
To help them come out of this denial that they're going through. But we also have to be very respectful, because we don't want to push our own judgments on them.
Yeah.
And try to push them to do something that they feel unsafe doing. So we might care so much about them that we're saying, you should leave him. You should leave him right away. You should leave him today, and just grab your bag and leave. So we might push him and tell him to do something that might not be safe for their situation. They might go home that day and try to pack, and that husband or that wife might come home and see that, and might just have kind of an outbreak and go and grab the knife or the gun or something, and just make the situation much, much worse.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful with the kind of suggestions we provide and the kind of safety plans we provide. It can't be an automatic thing. When I do safety plans with victims of domestic violence, we talk about it for weeks, sometimes months, because we want to make sure that we look at all the alternative routes, all the alternative options that are available for them, just in case something goes wrong. We want to truly prepare the person, and we want to make sure the person does it when they feel ready.
Yeah. Perfect. And thank you for sharing that. And I hope our viewers are watching this and they're understanding that as well. Should we continue? I know we have
We're very short on time today.
We're very short on time today. We do have 45 minutes left. I know we have one more video, but we can hold on to that and just continue on finishing it. Then we have one more question. But
okay.
How do you want to proceed on the time?
I think since we've been focusing so much on the relationship between husbands and wives, I know there was a video you wanted to show.
Yeah, there's a video on,
Okay.
it talks about 3 important things for, your wife,
The
what
needs.
the needs of it, and then also for the husband. So So please watch this video, and when you come back, we'll go ahead and maybe kind of have a quick discussion, because time is coming to an end. And if we don't finish or so, maybe we can, what we'll do is we'll come back and we'll work on it next week, inshallah. So please watch this video. When we come back, we'll have a discussion.
What is the primary need that a woman wants from her husband? What's the primary emotion? That is the continual love and the continual enveloping of that attention, that the husband always makes his wife his priority. The husband always shows his wife that I'm thinking about you, I'm caring about you, i.e., I will always love you. To feel that love, to feel cherishment, they need to be constantly reassured that their husbands love them, that their husbands always take them as number one, always. If women could get away with it, they want to be put on the pedestal, and the husband just looks at them all day and night, and that would be great for them, right? They want to be number one in their husbands' lives. So they want constant reassurance that the husband always loves them. Now, brothers, listen to this. Wives, do not take your love for granted. You take your wives' loves for granted. You don't need your wife to constantly reassure you that you love me, you love me. No, you take it for granted. The fact that she's still living with you shows you she loves you. Well, it doesn't work the other way around. It does not work the other way around. A woman is always double guessing. Does he still love me? Does he still think about me? Does he still care about me? Does he still put me number one? And therefore, a woman has to have constant reassurance. And not only this, but another issue that men need to be sensitive to and understand. Women are very conscious of their looks, and they're comparing their looks with other women all the time. We guys don't do that. We don't care about other looks of men, and we don't compare ourselves. But women are always thinking, am I still beautiful enough for him? Does he still think me attractive? Maybe I've gained a few pounds, maybe after the third kid, this and that. She's always double guessing her looks, her figure. And so the husband always has to make her feel the most beautiful, the most cherished, the most loved, the most admired. Though she always wants these reassurances. How does he do this? I'll just point out a number of them. Number one, words, words, words. Never underestimate the power of speech. Simply saying, I love you. I know it's awkward for men after the courting phrase. I know it's awkward, right? But believe me, it never goes out of fashion. For women, it never goes out of fashion. They always love to hear this phrase. And in fact, there are da'if hadith of our Prophet, it's a bit da'if hadith, but it's still mentioned in our books that our Prophet and Aisha were joking once, and Aisha said to the Prophet, كَيْفَ حُبُّكَ لِي? How much do you love me? How is your love for me? And our Prophet said, and he gave a beautiful, metaphorical, poetic expression. He said, my love for you is like the tight knot that cannot be unbound. My love for you is like the tight knot that cannot be unbound. So then, in the future, sometimes if they would have a bit of an issue, a bit of an argument, one of the two would remark, how is the knot right now? How is the knot right now? And Aisha would say this when the Prophet sometimes got irritated. How is the knot? So he would smile, he would say, as strong as it ever was. Right? And this hadith is in Daraqutni. Now the point being that the words, I love you, are something very important, but not just I love you. Praising her and what she does. Husbands, never take your wife's actions for granted. Suppose she is cooking and cleaning most of the time. Never take it for granted. Always, once in a while, come and compliment her. MashaAllah, that was great. You know, I really appreciate what you're doing for me. Those words, they go a long way. Your wife realizes, you know what, he's not taking me for granted. Very important. Praise her looks when she dresses up, when she does something extra special for you. Never take it for granted. Husbands, you all know the big danger of forgetting anniversaries, right? You all know how dangerous that is. Why do women want you to know their anniversaries? Because it makes them feel you still love them. Makes them feel he still remembers me, he still cherishes me. And celebrating anniversaries, honestly, I believe there are some scholars, they say it's haram bid'ah. SubhanAllah, quote me, celebrating anniversaries is mustahab. It is encouraged in our religion. What greater thing to do than for the husband to tell his wife over and over again that I love you, I'll do it all over again. Take them out for a romantic dinner. Be romantic with your wife. What better way of showing that love? There's nothing wrong at all to show that love on your anniversary days. This is something that the Sharia encourages the husband and wife to have that lovely bond together. Another thing that the woman wants is time. And time, this is now a difference in language. For husbands, time means the watch on your hand. So when the wife says, you never spend time with me, immediately he goes into calculation mode. I sleep 8 hours in a day, I have breakfast 1 hour, I come home, that's 10 hours with you. How can you say I never have time for you? Right? Because he's thinking of time in the dictionary definition of time. That's the clock. No, 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 no. Women have a different dictionary. Women have a different vocabulary. For women, time means attention. Undivided quality attention. So, you're working 5 days of the week. You have that Saturday night free, and you want to go and you want to watch a television match. You want to watch a cricket game. You want to go and play some basketball. You want to do this and that. That is quality time. And you have just shown your wife, when you have quality time, you don't want to spend it with her. So what does that mean? You never go out with the guys? No, of course you have to go out with the guys. But understand, when she's asking for time, she wants quality time. And this also when she comes to you to come for advice. She wants some issue to solve. One of the biggest problems that men have is they think as if the woman is coming to him to solve her problem. So immediately he'll say, oh, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you should do this, you should do that. And that is not what the woman wants. What does the woman want? The woman wants a loving ear, a sympathetic ear. She wants somebody to listen to her problem, to be sympathetic to her, not necessarily to solve her problem. This is quality time. To express that whatever she went through was frustrating, was problematic, and inshallah, they will work it out. You have to give what the woman wants, and in return, she will give what you want. When the man gives love, when the man gives that, what we call romance, and romance is nothing. Men think romance is a very dangerous word. They never want to use it, right? All romance means is you show her you're thinking about her. You show her you're caring about her. Husbands, the phrase I love you, giving roses, remembering the anniversaries, taking them out, spending quality time. This is what romance is. When you give the wife the love, you make her feel like she's number one. Guess what? She'll make you feel like you're number one. And so the both of you make each other feel like number one, and that's exactly what marriage is all about.
Welcome back, dear brothers and sisters, and I hope you guys liked the video and you enjoyed it. I know personally, I myself am a big, listener and a fan of Dr. Yasir Qadhi, who speaks very beautifully about, topics of Islam, and then, the discussion that he had today in the video that we showed about, what things should be done, to have a better or successful relationship with your spouse. And I wanted to kind of get your thoughts as well on this. What did you think about the video? It was a beautiful video.
I actually love that video. I know. I play that video quite often within our home when we have people coming over, because I think the video provides such a simple message, but such a meaningful message that, sometimes we as humans, as couples, tend to forget over time. And I think men don't learn the simple thing that he said about how women are always in need of hearing whether or not their spouse loves them, because as women we prioritize our spouses so much. And that it's just like an anxiety thing for a lot of women, and that's where that question comes in all the time, whether you love me or not. And I love the beautiful example that he provides, even with our own religion and prophets, and how our prophets would always say that the knot is tighter than ever before, even when they would have arguments.
And that's the fact of the matter. And this is something that I always talk about with new couples as well, is when they get married. Again, marriage is not simple, especially when you get married. You're gonna have challenges. We had a lot of challenges too, so it's a part of life. Part of growth. So I know some of our clients who come in as couples who are having family issues, who are willing to come in, even though it's very hostile, but they're still making the effort to come in. They'll come in and they'll say, you know what, we loved each other, things are going well, but now the love is not there, or they don't love me anymore. And I always tell them, listen, it's not about the love. Your guys' emotions and your guys' attraction to each other was very high in the beginning. You guys were very happy, love really starts from the baseline, from the bottom,
From the struggles.
and it goes up. So it depends on the struggles. Well, if there's times where I appreciate it when when one thing I know she doesn't really like is going out and watching UFC fights. I enjoy watching UFC fights, so she'll go and bear with me 4 or 5 hours of watching UFC fights, and that's what I enjoy.
And that's love to you.
And that's love to me, because these are things that people don't really think that are important, but they are, and that's because it's either I can go and spend that time with my some of my buddies, or just go watch it by myself, or I can take her knowing that she's there. At least I can have some conversation with her, and then having her there, that's what makes it much easier and genuine. So for that, for new couples and for folks that are in a bad relationship, again, it's difficult. Living, relationships aren't easy, and for you to sustain and keep them, and trying to build your relationship in a healthy way, you have to go and seek therapy. I'm telling you, and I promise you, it helps a lot. So if you are to go, and if you think there's an issue between the husband and wife, go to therapy.
Yeah.
If there's an issue between families or in-laws, go to therapy as well. They help. A lot of people don't understand this, but all of these things are very helpful for all of you.
We're trained in that, and we see it a lot, and so there's no shame in coming in and receiving help for those kind of problems, because we all go through them.
Yeah.
There's no family, couple out there that doesn't go through some kind of problem that other couples go through, so there's no shame in seeking that kind of service.
It definitely isn't. And the other thing I wanted to discuss and share before we leave is that I want to thank Dean Fazeli Fazeli John. Thank you so much. I know you've been very supportive of watching the show, and you've always been. And thank you for your beautiful comments, for telling me that sharing for the positive, being able to share the positive thoughts. This is somebody who actually has watched the show. That continuously watches my shows consistently in a period of like this 1 year. I think it's been about 6-7 months, or less than 6, since he realized, and now he's been watching it, and he's always been thankful for it, and I thank you for the support as well. So this is coming to an end of our program for today. We have a minute left till the Dhuhr Azan, and we will be done. I want to thank you very much for coming on to our show, and discussing the importance of domestic violence. I know it's so important for all of us to learn this, and I would suggest and ask you, if you can, maybe in the future, if you can come again and we can tackle a different topic. And I think it's very genuine and very, very important that a lot of people do watch these important shows. When they see, for instance, to us, if we want to solve certain challenges or difficulties, or even if we want to share our experiences with people, we're willing to do that. If you guys are willing to, continuously watch our program, give us a call or leave a comment or follow us on Facebook. So for that, I'm asking to see, if you would be willing to come in future events.
Definitely. Thank you.
But not to say, again, thank you so much for coming, and I really appreciate that, this program has been very well enriched. If there's anything else that you like to say before we go off.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for, having me here today. I won't take up too much time because I know it's Adhan time. But I wanted to just thank the viewers who watched us today, who have been leaving comments. If you have any other questions that, you might not feel comfortable calling us on the show or posting online about, Willie John's phone number is on the show, so you can always send him a private message, and you don't have to mention your name, and you can always ask him questions, or if you have any questions that are addressed towards me, you can send those questions to him, and I can provide answers for those. So thank you so much for having me here and watching this today.
And for those that are still watching this, again, brothers and sisters, let me know what are the programs or what is it that you guys are looking at, and what are certain topics of discussion that you guys want to share or discuss with us. So please let me know, so this way I can continuously go ahead and talk about different topics of discussion. And I've had and said this previously in multiple times to all of you, that if you guys can, please let me know or share your thoughts with me, so I can go ahead and prioritize in discussing certain important matters with you guys. I know there has become a difficult time in all of our lives, and some of the struggles that I see amongst family is that parents are having a hard time with their children. There's the youth issues and other program issues as well. But not to say more, please hear the azan, and then this is it for today's show. I hope you guys nothing but the best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن